Well, hello, Nate. Are you still with me?
Oh, I'm still here. I just decided to do the show without my camera today because our guest looks much better than I do. So,
Okay, all right.
yeah, I'm just going to do the show incognito like this so y'all don't have to look at this mug. You know what I'm saying?
Oh my goodness. All right,
No.
there he
So
is.
how we doing tonight, Gwen?
Pretty good. How about you?
I'm hanging in there, as the Southerners say, like a hair on a biscuit, which I've never understood that term, but here I am.
True. And we got a good guest tonight. Really good guest.
Oh,
I
we
don't
do.
even know how many books he's written. I tried to count and I kind of lost count. So gonna have to ask you that question too. So
Well, it's probably because you have issues counting past 6.
yeah, he's so funny.
See,
Well,
this is why I get in trouble all the time.
there's the woman you get in trouble with, not me.
Oh, yeah, because I'll be making those comments to everybody. I don't care. Jeremy, how you doing? Sarah Blake,
Sarah?
she'll be a guest on the show. I believe it's December. So
Nice.
happy to have you here. So tonight, guys, we have an amazing show lined up for you. We have a author that is local to my home state. So I am super stoked about this. He is a multi-award winning best-selling author and the creator of the website Otis, or Odd Things I've Seen. Please welcome to the Paranormal Unveiled family, a guy I've been trying to get on for a year, but I just haven't had time to ask him, and we made it happen. So please welcome on Mr. J.W. Ocker.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Good. Welcome.
How's it going? So first and foremost, Jay, thank you so much for taking the hour to come on and talk to us tonight. I am very much looking forward to this, so I greatly appreciate it.
No, I appreciate the invite. It's going to be a blast. I know for sure.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm hoping you will. We'll see. You never know where conversations go. But I'm looking forward to this show, and I want to open the show by asking a typical question that I ask all of my guests. A lot of your books, they center around cryptids, they center around ghosts or UFOs and stuff like that, like the paranormal realm. What got you originally sparked with the idea of, hey, I want to write books about the paranormal? Was it a personal experience you had, or was it just a general interest?
So, interestingly enough, my obsession with the paranormal is not where other people's are. It's not as fun as where other people's are. My obsession is with the idea of belief, because I grew up highly religious. Like, first 25 years of my life, I was very, very evangelical. And when you're a Christian, you believe in a lot of what other people call paranormal. They don't call that in the religious world, but it's still the same thing, right? Demons and spirits and angels and weirdness and all kinds of like high strangeness, right? Correct. So once I lost that in my life, the idea that you can believe something super extravagant one day and not believe it the next day shocked myself. And I think so part of my obsession with the paranormal is the idea of belief. Like, what can we believe? And the other part is this: I just think it's cool. I've always been like drawn to monsters, and I've always been drawn to the aesthetic of like spooky houses and what if there's more out there. So it's an aesthetic, it's an interest, and it's also kind of an obsession. But again, not to prove or disprove, it's not the world I ever live in. It's just the stories and the belief and the people. That's kind of like where I live in the paranormal world.
I like that because I was raised Southern Baptist, so close to it. If I can never pronounce that word, evangelical.
We used to say independent Baptist, if that's close enough for you.
Yeah, close enough. And you were raised, well, at least me, that ghosts don't exist, spirits don't exist. And I'm like, well, if ghosts and spirits don't exist, then how is there a Holy Ghost and Holy Spirit? Please explain that to me. Yeah. And they were all like, oh, well, we don't talk about that. But
it's a cult, right? It's very cult.
That's where I would get in trouble as a kid.
It's like, but I'm sure we do. You always tell us we do. So it's when you're raised in a religious aspect, it becomes a completely different thing. I know that my mother and I believe Morgan was raised Catholic, and so they do have a little bit more of a belief in it, but it's still kind of shunned upon, if that makes sense.
Which is weird to me. Like you said, it's very close. Like, you can believe. I mean, there's witches in the Bible. There's like supernatural stuff in the Bible. It's so close to say, whatever. Elijah was taken up in a fiery chariot, but a wispy specter can't exist in a haunted house is it's not logically coherent, right? You have to kind of believe them, or at least be open to the idea of both of them in your worldview if you accept some of that,
right.
I agree. And you know what's going to make this conversation even more interesting is he talks just about as fast as I do. So,
I know fast talker.
so this is gonna be fun because we're gonna be going back and forth this all night, and I hope all y'all Southerners can understand it. Because trust me, I'm from the South. I know you got to slow down for y'all sometimes. But
Oh my goodness.
yeah, I went there. So
I know you did.
I did. But JW, you are based out of New Hampshire. That's where you live, correct?
That's where I live. That's right. Mm-hmm.
So I love a lot of the locations that we have here in New Hampshire. You know, you have America's Stonehenge, you have the Robert Frost Farmstead, which is not far from America's Stonehenge for those of you who don't know that. And then you, of course, you know, you have Laconia State School. You have up there in the White Mountains, you have the Omni Mount Washington. Is there a specific spot in New Hampshire that you would choose as like your favorite spot, whether or not it be for the ghostly lore or just the history?
It's a good question because I have a little bit of a skewed perspective on that too, because I'm not native to New England. I'm from Maryland, Virginia, you know, points in the Mid-Atlantic and South. You know, when I moved to New England, I chose New Hampshire. I joke I chose it because it was a blank slate for me. Like Vermont had a reputation, Maine, maniacs had a reputation, Massachusetts were massholes, right? And then Connecticut was basically New York. And New Hampshire was the only one that didn't really have a personality in my head. I'm wrong about that, but there was a blank slate. But the beauty of it, though, when I moved to New Hampshire, it's in the middle of New England, so I can get to anywhere in New England within like an hour or two. So like I kind of consider all New England my backyard because any given weekend I'm in Connecticut, I'm in Vermont, I'm in Massachusetts. Massachusetts is 5 minutes from my house. It's like right across the border. So I almost never think of New Hampshire as a single entity. But let me see if I can come up with something for you. Man, there is some. Man, I'm gonna blank on this.
You don't have to take New Hampshire. Let's just go the Northeast. How about that?
Yeah, well, the Northeast is giant, right? So I like the vampire graves of Rhode Island. I'm always kind of treating toward that. Massachusetts is full of like abandoned asylums and hospitals. That's kind of what I think with there. Maine has just an inordinate level. I just like the rocky coast of Maine. I'm a big like tide pooler, so I'm always up there. It's not spooky, but that's kind of what I do there. And then the cemeteries. Like one of the reasons I moved to New England, one of the many reasons is ancient cemeteries, right? So back home in the DC area, we have cool cemeteries, but they're not very old. You come to New England, I pass 4 17th century cemeteries on the way to the grocery store. They're just everywhere. And then those cemeteries have amazing iconography, right? You know, skull, death heads, and people in coffins. The lore, there's always some kind of ghost lore around it. They're usually kind of full of nature and the history. They're just like the perfect spots for me. So in general, I'm always trending toward cemeteries, and probably my answer for the New Hampshire question is going to be a cemetery somewhere because, again, they're just magnificent, and I feel like the rest of the country is impoverished for not having that level of age and history in their cemeteries.
I 100% concur. So my bedroom window actually overlooks the oldest cemetery in Newport, and I believe, which for the record, if anyone ever tells you that a cemetery makes for quiet neighbors, it absolutely does not. We have wandering spirits that come into our house from time to time. It happens. But I can tell you that the oldest grave in that cemetery that I found was 1841. Mm-hmm. And so when you go back to that time frame, you know, it's such an old cemetery. There's so much history there.
Yeah.
And I wish I could sit down and chronologically find everyone in the cemetery as far as their family trees and such. I don't have all the time to do that. But it is so fascinating how the cemeteries here in New Hampshire and Massachusetts seem to be so much older, which I know is probably the way the 13 colonies were founded and such. Sure. But it's astounding to me how the cemeteries are so much older, but the headstones, they're so much more ornate.
Yeah. Yeah, they had like a much, because of their existence, right? They had a much closer relationship to death, so they had no problem. Like I know of a stone in, I believe it's out west in Massachusetts, that has a coffin engraved on the stone at the top, a coffin, and inside a body and a child's body, because the woman was buried with a child in that grave. So that there, like today, right? If we put somebody in the ground, it's a polished stone. It says "beloved father," "beloved mother." We try to pretend they're not even dead, really, honestly, on their headstones. But the colonists, they had no problem be like, "Yep, dead. You're next." You know, just all the epitaphs are very weird. There's like they accuse people of murder on the epitaphs. They have again, it was like death was just like the next thing that they had to like deal with. You know, like in the midst of all their hardships and all those things in the early days of the country. But I love it though. I just love that ancientness. Again, seeing the numeral 16 on a headstone for the beginning of the year is like, this thing is 400 years, whatever. I'm not gonna do math in my head.
Right.
This thing is centuries old. It just blows your mind, and it's just a slate stone. It's not even like some historic building that we've managed to keep up alive by funding millions of dollars into it and making it a tourist attraction. It's just a humble headstone of some random person that has just survived into modern day, and it gives us that continuity with the past that we don't always get
Correct.
Physically,
Yeah, and there's another cemetery that's not too far from me. It's maybe like a 10-minute drive. And I walked through there once and I was reading some of the headstones. There's actually a headstone in there from when a guy who lived in Newport traveled down to Massachusetts to help build the Transcontinental Railroad. And he died while building the Transcontinental Railroad. That's literally on his headstone.
I love that. My favorite thing that we don't do usually is put the cause of death on the stone. Every once in a while you get it. There's the poisoned oyster grave out in Massachusetts somewhere where somebody died of poisoned oysters. There are graves out west I've been to that there's a whole minor cemetery in Nevada where like they put all the died from a plague, died from a cave-in right on their headstones. But here again, we focus on the life, I guess, the dash between the numbers. And all I want to know is, great that you lived, you had children, that's great, you lived a good life, you're religious, but how did you die? That's what I also want to know. Because you're standing right above the remains. So it's a very relevant question.
Yeah, and I lived in Nevada for quite some time when I was younger, and I've seen some of these cemeteries that you're speaking of. So you know what the synchronicities that are weird right here is New Hampshire, and I've lived in Nevada, so it's kind of weird.
So where in the South are you from?
So I was actually born here in New Hampshire.
Oh.
We moved to Las Vegas.
Okay.
And we lived just off of the embankment of Lake Mead for quite a while. So my family was homeless when we were younger due to drug abuse, and I've always been open about that. And we camped out on Lake Mead for like 6 months. And I've actually seen the gates of Area 51, so I'm not going to complain.
Yeah, same. It's cool.
I will tell you though, armed guards will remove you from said site.
When I visited, I was so scared. I had 2 young children. I wouldn't let them get out of the car because I'm like, the little white truck is on the hill, like watching you know. And I'm like, you guys, sorry, you have to stay in the car. I just don't trust you guys not to take off across this line.
Right. And so we ended up there, and then I went to Alabama for 22 years, and I lived just outside of Fort Rucker.
Okay, yeah.
And we went from Fort Rucker back here to my home state.
I love it. As a travel writer and as a guy who moved around a bit himself, I'm always obsessed with where people have lived. Like what's your experience with the country, right? Because a lot of times we get very we get in our own little bubbles and not realize like this is a massive country full of really cool stuff. So yeah, I love to hear about people's physical lives.
Dude, it's always interesting because everyone has a story to tell. And not everyone's story is the same, which is what makes us all interesting. But moving forward from that, I want to talk about a few books that I do have in my paranormal library. So my paranormal library consists of a little bit over 200 books. And for the record, I've read all but about 20 of them. So still working on the last one. I read 3 books at a time when I start reading. I jump back and forth between chapters because I don't want to get bored. So the first one I want to touch on, the United States of Cryptids. So I love this book. My son loved this book. If I ever meet you in person, I would love for you to sign it for me.
Of course. Yeah.
And so you taught me about a very obscure cryptid that I had never heard of before. And I was like, this thing cannot be real. It is so outlandish. And I'm talking about the Wisconsin legend of the Hodag.
Hodag is one of the coolest cryptids. Just its name. It's fun to say, right? And then the whole point of the book, right? So I wrote the book. So I talked to my publisher one time and we were trying to figure out the next book. And they were like, what about cryptids? Cryptids are pretty cool. I'm like, yeah, cryptids are cool. But like every year a cryptid encyclopedia comes out and I didn't want to add another one to that weight, right? There's some great ones out already. There's nothing I could add as far as the encyclopedia goes. Fair. But then we realized, oh, that's right. You're a travel writer. And there's all these towns all over the country that celebrate their cryptids, like festivals and plaques and statues and museums. And I'm like, whoa, that's the intersection of my life, right? Cryptids and traveling to cool places. So the Hodag up in Wisconsin and Rhinelander, they go all out. They have a giant statue of it in front of the commerce. They have merchandise. They have signs. They are proud of their cryptid. It's not like this thing where, sometimes towns, they don't like their paranormal stories, right? They want to focus on boring stuff like their mountains and fields and their war history or whatever, So the thing that I say that's boring only because every town has those things, right?
Yes.
But if you have, a giant puma-sized creature with fangs and horns and claws in your past. Nobody else has that probably. So the hodag is great also because it's part of lumberjack lore. So it's a whole subsection of cryptids. Some are citing, there's all kinds of categories, right? But one category is lumberjack lore. Back in the early days of lumbering the country, right? There's no low electricity, no lights. They're just in these dark forests for weeks, kind of cutting down lumber. And they would just come around campfires and tell stories and assign personalities to the noises they would hear at night. Because again, the woods were full of noises, even more so back then. And they would just come up with creatures. And those things got, eventually got kind of solidified and added to and codified until now we have a town like Rhinelander that cannot stop talking about their hodag. I always make people go to their website, their town website, because it's more like a hodag, a fan site, than it is like a regular town site where you pay your bills.
Really?
Yeah. They've got a mascot. It's like little games. It's like it's really cool.
Look, I'm all for t-shirts. Do they have a hodag t-shirt?
Oh, not only do they have hodag t-shirts, every year around Christmas, they do a bunch of Christmas merchandise where it goes ho ho hodag, and all of this stuff says that.
Oh no, that's awesome.
They're great at merching. Great at merching.
I you know what? I know what I have to do now for our Christmas extravaganza. I know what I've got to do.
You need a ho ho hodag shirt for sure.
I do. So another weird one that a lot of people have probably never heard of, and I'm not even sure I'm going to pronounce this correctly, the Rhinelampus.
That's right. That one's just down the road from Rhinelander. So this one is a weird one. This is to me, I'm calling it a whole new category of cryptid, where it was never cited. There's never a story about it. There's no old tale about it. This is literally a manufactured cryptid where a guy went to the woods and found this weird knot of roots and trunks and thought it looked kind of weird. Pulled it out, chopped it out of the brush, took it to his restaurant because he owned a restaurant, painted it green, gave it a face, and called it a Rhinolampus or something. I can't remember off the top of my head. But he combined octopus, rhinoceros, and elephant or something into one word. And it was in front of his restaurant for a very long time, years and years and years, to the point that one day, and this is a small town. So the town is, it escapes my name, but it's really just down the road from Rhinelander in Wisconsin. It's just a crossroads of a town. They had one restaurant, nothing much else. And, decades later, when they kind of passed the restaurant on, the new owners wanted to expand it, and they had this giant monster on the front porch that's like 10 feet, 12 feet tall and very wide. And they wanted to get rid of it, so they just told everybody, we're going to get rid of it. But two people in the town were like, don't get rid of it. That's like the thing we have. So they went down and grabbed it, threw it in a flatbed, took it down to the park, and built like a fence around it to make it look a little bit more ferocious. And that to this day, it's in this little fence in the park that anybody can go by. And they have like a little bit of a rivalry with Rhinelander because they say their creature eats hodag, so so it's a good idea that while in Rhinelander, which is, sizable, swing by our town and see our our cryptid as well. So that's a really cool one because it's manufactured. That's how powerful these creatures are, is you can make one up and it still can have stories and impact and bring people to your town.
You know what? And that's crazy because I had no idea about this whole ideology of the two cryptids battling for territory.
Yeah.
That
by
is
territory,
insane.
you mean tourists these days. Yeah.
Yeah, that is insane. And another one that I wanted to touch on, just because obviously it's my favorite.
Mine as well. You're not going to get an argument from me. Mothman, and the reason the Mothman's the best, in my opinion. And people kind of know that these days. I think his profile's risen and risen and risen. Like Bigfoot has become kind of a cliche, right? He's everywhere. The Loch Ness Monster is everywhere, right? They're stars, right? Now we have this like up and comer Mothman that everybody loves, an underdog. But I love it because I love the design. I just love the idea of an insectoid humanoid. That's awesome.
Dang.
Two, it actually has a story, an arc. Like, so most cryptid stories are, teens, higher drunk, driving in the back roads of some town, red eyes in the night, right? That's kind of the story. And then it ends with, and it was never seen ever again. That's every story, right? With the Mothman, it starts the same. Bunch of teens, back roads, high, drunk, red eyes. But then it ends with the Silver Bridge collapse, right? So that's as a storyteller, you're always looking for a full arc to tell. And that's a full arc. There's no vague, nobody knows what it was. It just escaped into the night. It was, oh, boom. This whole thing ends with it doesn't technically end there, but for purpose of the story, it ends there. And my favorite thing about this town, they've embraced this thing like crazy. Museum, giant statue that you've seen, like the silver. Even if you don't like cryptids, you've seen the statue, the stainless steel.
If you've not seen the statue, you've at least seen the ass of the statue.
That's right. You've at least seen the very nicely sculpted ass on this thing for sure. Then they have the other thing you can actually, so every other cryptid sighting, right? If I went to see the Bigfoots of Whitehall in New York, right? Where's the sighting? Oh, it's just that road, just that patch of forest, something very vague and generic. But in Point Pleasant, you go to the TNT area with those giant house-sized concrete igloos that are full of graffiti and like forest, and it feels like you're in 1961 or whatever, and any second you could see the Mothman. It's very immersive in a way that modern cryptid sites just aren't. If for some reason it's been preserved, it's already spooky as all hell, so it's just
Right.
a perfect place. So for all those reasons, I think the Mothman is top tier cryptid, especially as far as traveling goes. It's just, you can't beat what they've done. And also that festival they throw
The
every
yearly
September,
Mothman Festival.
yes, it's not only is it the best, it is the template. So many other festivals that have started for cryptids all use the success of the Mothman Festival as their template. They're like, well, they did it with the Mothman, why can't we do it over here with the Ohio Python, right? Or whatever, or the Peninsula Python, that's what it is.
Yes.
So everywhere I came, I was looking at newspapers and interviews, they were like, we want to be like Point Pleasant. They just, and that's because, again, usually there's a timeline for towns, right? They start up here, they're like, they're prosperous, they're doing good, they have jobs, they have a downtown, they have all these things. And then times get hard, and then all they have is one industry in town that they're doing, and then that gets outsourced somewhere else, and they lose that, and then they have nothing to really drive the town's economy, and they're too small to really diversify. So then they try tourism, right? And which is a hard game to play.
It is.
And oftentimes, they're in the middle of nowhere, they don't have a lot to show off, and then they land on tourism as a last resort. Suddenly everybody in town loves the Bigfoot that they hated, 20 years ago. So then it happens, and if they do it right, it works really, really well. But it is kind of their last hope as far as which is weird to say, right? Cryptids are the last hope of these towns as far as driving their economies. But again, Point Pleasant has proven it. That's a tiny town that just quadruples in size every September, right?
Yeah.
And it's just a fascinating story to watch, like people leverage these really obscure, esoteric fringe stories into their mainstream life. Seeing signs, town restaurants named after it. Welcome signs with a creature right on it, right? So that's just a fun, fascinating thing.
Yeah, so I don't know if Gwen has a picture, if she could find one, but if you guys don't know what we're talking about by the ass of the Mothman statue, Mothman's thick. Okay.
Yeah.
And it's become a tradition
There's
for
a
people to
couple.
go and drop a coin in the ass crack of the moth. I don't get it, but
It's
it
not a
happens.
lie. Yeah.
And also, I recently saw a picture where someone put a temporary tattoo, a tramp stamp over the.
That's pretty brilliant. I gotta say, that's pretty brilliant.
I'm like, if it needs any more attention, like that's the way to get it. But it's awesome, and I love Mothman. He's my always co-host right over here, my little Mothman. You might not be able to see him, but I love the lore, and also the Mothman is one of those that it's not just in Point Pleasant. It's been cited worldwide.
Yeah, that's correct. Chicago, Chernobyl, like it's one of the, again, it's almost kind of invented the category in a way, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
But once we saw one humanoid, insectoid, suddenly that just kind of opened the gates.
Yeah, and so
That's
since it's been seen worldwide, given your experience in researching these beings, right? Let me ask your opinion on this. Do you think the Mothman is actually someone who is a harbinger of doom, or do you think he's trying to warn people about things that are to come?
You know what? I fall because I kind of remain neutral as far as like proof or not proof. To me, what him at his most powerful isn't even really. Harbinger sounds pretty powerful, and again, he's very unique in having that element of his story. But again, to me, what makes him most powerful and other creatures like him is the impact they have on reality, right? Which is kind of the same standard we have for people and for causes. Like, how do you impact reality? And again, these creatures have impacted reality in creating stories, creating belief, creating cultures, creating economies, creating commonalities, right? You go to a cryptid convention. In my experience, this is my experience.
Mm-hmm.
Not everybody believes in them, but
Right.
They both share in common that they love the idea of them, right? If you know the word hodag, you're a friend automatically, right? Something you have a community. And so that impact on them, that makes them real in a way that's much more meaningful to me than whether they're biologically plausible or a figment, a hoax, mass delusion, or something more esoteric, right? Ultra terrestrial or all those kind of like other theories of what they are. So that's kind of where I live. I live in like these are real in the sense that they've had a real impact on our reality and our lives. So like that's where I live. That's kind of the power of them for me.
And that's a very fair answer. And when I went over to Broadhead, Wisconsin, last July for the Broadhead Beard Brawl, I was actually trying to look around for tattoo shops because I wanted to get a Hodag tattoo while I was there. And then I remembered, yes, that's the Mothman statue, but do you have a picture of the behind? There we go.
There it
Why
is.
did they build it so thick? Why?
And put that in perspective. This is I can't remember, like 12, 16 foot tall statue. So very impressive.
Massive.
Shining silver, sterling steel, shining steel, very eye catching, has an insect head, and still the focus always ends up going to that
Right
backside,
To that.
But compare the people. Can you see the people behind it?
Yeah,
It is huge.
it's a massive statue.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those statues that most towns might be embarrassed of, right? We want a giant monster in the middle of our town, right? And I just tell them, like, I would just say, like, well, you just don't have good stories in your history then, or B, you just haven't gotten to a level where you realize how cool this is.
So Gwen, I wasn't sure if you had seen the backside of the Mothman before or not, but if you haven't, you have now.
Actually, yes, but I did not have a picture. That's why I went and swiped one real quick because that's too good to miss.
But yeah, no. So I was trying to think about looking for tattoo shops when I was in Wisconsin to get a tattoo of a Hodag, just because I thought it would be cool. And then I remembered that my brother is a Green Bay Packers fan, and I don't want nothing from Wisconsin on my body.
No Wisconsin there.
He actually asked me to get him an authentic cheese head when I was there, and I'm like, I'm not bringing that to the airport.
Which is funny because I always push Wisconsin as the most cryptid laced. There's more variety of cryptids in Wisconsin than anywhere, really maybe other than West Virginia, right? Those two states have like everything versus really whatever. New Hampshire is very impoverished when it comes to cryptids. But
yeah, we have the devil monkey.
Yes, we have a form of primate like every single state has, right?
Yeah, we have the devil monkey.
So Wisconsin's a great state as far as cryptids. It's like I don't know how it did it, but somehow it kind of like but kind of made itself very prominent in the market.
Right. So I got a few more things to touch on cryptids, then we're going to move forward. Do you think, since we're on Wisconsin, the Beast of Bray Road, do you think that is a form of misidentification, or do you think that maybe these people are seeing something, but like you said earlier, it's really weird that it's concentrated to one specific spot?
And the other thing is misidentification. It's easy for a skeptic to be like, oh, misidentification really easily. In this case, their stories are so detailed and so obviously werewolves, like it's something else. If it's not werewolves, then it is something beyond a misidentification. Again, a collective hoax, a collective hallucination or some kind of cultural thing. Because again, a lot of these are from kids, honestly, which is also one of the secrets of cryptids. But I can't call it misidentification when there's so much detail. It's easy to some cryptids are very vague, none coming to my mind, but they look cat-like or dog-like, and they're very vague in their description. Easy to put those in the misidentification category. But the stories around say again?
Like the Wampus cat.
Yes, very vague, right? Maybe an extra paw, I don't know, right?
Yeah, maybe an extra paw.
Yeah. So yeah, for me, Bray Road can't be misidentification. It is something else. And again, hoax is your next for skeptics. Hoax is the next idea, but this wasn't, just the way it was built. It wasn't built like a hoax, but it's so to me, it's something. It's something very interesting. And the fact that it was confined to that one road, the fact that it's all around the same time period, and the fact that there were so many stories. Again, it just is for something so weird as a werewolf or a humanoid canine. It is super super weird that there's that much there.
Yeah, and the odd thing is there was a height at one point where there was multiple sightings, in a row. It's not like we're talking about the Dover Demon, where it was seen for 3 days and then just dissipated. Right. No one's seen it since.
That's right.
Or the which I didn't see it in this book, but the Alabama White thing, where it's there for maybe 6 people have reported sightings of it, and otherwise than that, there's no documented record of it.
Yeah,
it's so the Beast of Bray Road, they have this steady documentation. I'm not sure if it's a werewolf. I'm not sure if it's some kind of undocumented dire wolf that has not been discovered that's really huge, which is always plausible. Yeah. I'm just not sure if I'm going to buy into Lancropathy as far as it being a werewolf. Sure. I'm just not sure.
And the other part of that is when you have multiple sightings across time, it might not necessarily be one thing, right? It could be a combination of a hoax, a misidentification, urban legend, an actual sighting of some creature. You just don't know what those kind of things, and they can all merge together into because we all want to make sense out of life. It can all merge together in one story, but that's not necessarily how it was built, you know.
Right. And so Morgan had a good question there, Gwen, if you wouldn't mind repeating that.
Yep.
So she said, is it possible that it's more of an egregore or a thought form type energy?
That is popping up more and more in the paranormal community, and I think I have a theory about that, right? I call it reverse Occam's razor, right? So Occam's razor is when you have to cut away every explanation until you get the most simplest, right? Reverse Occam's razor is when the explanation you have doesn't work, you go wild with it. You go to points where you can't prove it, right? So I see that with Bigfoot, right? We haven't found a Bigfoot corpse. It was named in like the early 1950s. Haven't had a Bigfoot corpse in 75 years. So now some people are saying, well, that's because it was never biological in the first place. It was a ghost. It was an alien that went away. It's an ultra-terrestrial. Things you can't actually prove, or a thought form, right? It could be a thought form as well. So to me, when I hear thought forms, it's kind of the last bastion of trying to salvage the story. And I actually don't think the stories need to be salvaged, but somebody trying to hold on to it a little bit. I just haven't seen, like, mass hysteria is a real thing. Like when you get a lot of people together, it's a real thing. You can see anything. So in that sense, I almost want to, and this is not fair, but I want to define egregores and thought forms and all the words that mean that as some sort of mass hallucination. It could work that way, but I just never seen enough. And again, I haven't dug deep enough into it to know that you can create actual, entities or visions or sights out of a bunch of people's minds. But it's a fascinating story. Again, I go back to stories and belief. It's a fascinating thing to have when the body doesn't show up, right? When you're like, okay, it's not biological, so what else is it? Thought form, which is like, again, it's kind of, to me, it's a cool evolution.
Right. And I agree with that. And as far as mass hysteria being a real thing, Salem witch trials, great example. I believe back in the 1700s, there was this whole town that pretty much danced themselves to death.
Yeah, they did.
And it was all mass hysteria. So I agree with you on that, 100%.
Was that St. Vitus dance, I think, something like that? But yeah, it happens all the time.
Yeah.
Like even so, I'll go to Alabama. The one Alabama creature I did put in there was the wolf woman of Alabama, right? And that was a form where it was cited. It was cited one time, and suddenly the second it was on the table, everybody started seeing it. There's always that one sighting that kind of causes it. So like that's one of the clues that this might not be whatever. It might have been a real sighting, but all of these sightings might not be real because we get caught up really fast. Whether it's in like accusations, like in Salem witch trials, where everybody suddenly is seeing the devil and witches flying on brooms, right? And literally believing it, right? That's how strong pressure is from like our peers and our colleagues in our communities. So it's a real thing, and again, it makes it harder with cryptozoology to have to like kind of sort through that. This is one other variable you have to sort through when you're trying to, like, for those who are trying to prove the existence of some of these cryptids. I
agree with that. So before we move forward from cryptids, if you had to choose one cryptid that, in your personal belief, has a better chance of existing than the rest of them, what is that cryptid?
It's a good question. To me, and I don't have one in my head, but it's whatever's in the ocean, right?
Okay, so yeah, it could be a genre, yes.
Yeah, exactly. And that's been proven already, right? The Kraken, we do have colossal squids and giant squids, turned out. And only in recent history do we find physical video proof of those things. But I also try to remind people when they ask that question is that cryptids is a real phenomenon, right? We have, it's a scientific phenomenon as well, besides cryptozoology, right? We have examples all throughout history of animals that were thought to exist in smaller communities that nobody else believed in. The rest of the world didn't believe in, right? Gorillas, okapi, coelacanths, or we thought they were extinct. And turns out, nope, they exist. But the problem is the second we find them, they go to the biologists, right? They go to the cryptozoologists lose them the second they're proven. They go somewhere else, right? So all those success stories become failures, right? Almost because again, the second we find Bigfoot, he's not a cryptid anymore. He goes somewhere else, right? He goes to biology or anthropology or wherever he goes, right? So that's kind of the cryptozoologist curse is that idea of, it's happened before. We've established creatures that, Tasmanian wolf, we're still trying to find that one, right? That's very plausible when you have video of it. So like, it's cryptids are real. They are real, period. And then what you're talking about are kind of the more extravagant ones, or the ones that haven't been proven yet, right? We put it that way. And to me, again, it's always the water, always the oceans. It just hides so much, and it's such an alien environment for us.
So
That's true.
before we move on from cryptids, you were voted Cryptozoologist of the Year of 2022.
Yes, yeah, that was a huge honor for me.
And I don't know if a lot of people know that or not. So what was it like to get that award? Like, did you get a phone call? Did you get a letter? Like, how did that whole thing work?
So Lauren, who runs the International Cryptozoology Museum, who I've
Lauren
known off and
Coleman,
on,
right?
yeah, Lauren Coleman. You see him in all the documentaries. I've run across him in my writings all the time. Every time I try to like write a story, he freaking pops up almost every single time, especially in New England. And you know, he sent me a photo. He's like, "Hey," he sent me a photo of like a past winner's trophy, which is this like golden Bigfoot. He's like, "Hey, just give you a heads up. I'm gonna announce this. You know, you won 2022." And I'm like, at first I was like, "What? No. I'm not a cryptozoologist. I don't do field work. Right? I don't do that." Then I realized that the field is so, you know, tenuous. Really, it's a tenuous field on purpose. That writing about it in a serious way kind of makes you a cryptozoologist, right? You don't have to do, you know, I can't call myself a biologist if I write an encyclopedia of zoo animals, because, you know, they exist, right? We have proof they exist. We know they exist. There's all kinds of science around them. But cryptozoology, the study of cryptids is a lot, you know, we have a lot more leeway and there's a lot more like areas to find. So once I accepted that, it was like, I don't know, it's a proud moment. My kids were there. They love, like I said, your son loves cryptids. Kids love cryptids. That book obviously done better with kids than it's done with adults. They just are obsessed with them. So, you know, that was such a great moment to like, you know, be around. There's other cryptozoologists there. It was a convention. It was in Maine. It was like, you know, it was one of the highlights of my life without even quivering. 100% one of the highlights of my life was getting that award.
Well, I want to say congratulations on getting that, because I have not contacted Lauren about being on my show yet. I would love to have him at some point. I'll work on that in the future. But no, dude, like I when I read that on your website, so now we're going to touch on that, which is kind of like the transition here. I want to talk about Otis, or Odd Things I've Seen. I saw that and I was like, that's awesome. Because I love cryptids. I love cryptozoology. And also, I'm sorry, I'm getting scatterbrained and squirrel-brained here real quick. So being up here in the Northeast, you said that Massachusetts has a lot of abandoned asylums and hospitals and such. Yep. Have you ever been to Medfield State?
Yes.
You have?
Yes, so, that's a really cool area. Like, it's not too far. I mean, you know where I'm at. It's not too far for me.
So this is my research folder on Medfield State.
Whoa. I've only been there and maybe written an article about it.
I have a separate folder specifically for the cemetery.
So why the obsession with that one of all the places? And
you know, I don't know. I went there once and I just felt it was magical. I enjoyed it. It made me feel comfortable. Mm-hmm. And I went through and I got every property record that I could find from 1912 until 1970 something.
Man.
And then I went through the cemetery and I was like, okay, so now I know the history of the people that are there. And now I want to go through, and me and my daughter did this a few years back. We went through and we were running paranormal equipment, trying to get responses. Mm-hmm. And we got a lot of interesting stuff. Pretty much every name that we got that came through on the equipment, I could tie back to someone that was either buried in the cemetery or worked at the actual location.
That's cool.
And so that's just wanted to point out, it's one of my favorite places. I think that place is amazing. It's beautiful. And if you're ever in the Massachusetts area, you need to go see it.
Yeah, and that's a good one that I like to point out as well, because, you know, a lot of these places are off limits, right? You can't go near them or they're like patrolled. This one is accessible. Like, you can't go inside them. You can if you want, but you're not allowed. It's like inside is off limits, but you can go up to the buildings. You can go see this. Like you said, the cemetery is right there. It is like, you know, and as I get older and older and less trespassy and more like law abiding, like those kinds of sites mean a lot to me, because I can still have that thrill of seeing something old and broken and full of history that most people have forgotten about without like being like, excuse me, sir, you shouldn't be here right now.
The most inside the buildings I've ever gotten was the caretaker did allow me to go into the church once.
Oh, that's perfect. Great. It's awesome, man.
And the church, you know, it's got a lot of historical value too, because it was one of the main focal points of the movie Shutter Island.
That's right. Yeah, they filmed in there.
Yeah, and X-Men: The New Mutants was filmed there. There was a gangster movie filmed there as well. I can't remember what movie it was.
Yeah, but, just so people know, this is like, it's like a park. It's like there's like whatever, a dozen buildings, maybe 20 buildings. They're all kind of shuttered with like warning signs all over the buildings, but all the lawns, all the trailways, they're all
clear.
Yeah, you can walk your dog there. They walk your dog there. It's like people go there and like, have fun. It is open to the public park. I think that could change any second. They're always talking about redeveloping that and like all those kinds of things. But it is again, it's a very unique opportunity you don't get a lot of places.
Yeah, when I heard the plausibility of them turning it into low rent income apartments, I'm like, look, I'm all for helping people that have, lower income. But if you want a haunted apartment, that's how you get a haunted apartment.
Yeah.
No, I remember watching that X-Men movie and like, oh, I know where that is. I know exactly where that is. It's like they use it really well.
They do. So next thing I want to move forward a little bit. I want to touch really quickly because I see, wow, we've already freaking killed 42 minutes.
Yes.
I want to talk about your book, Cursed Objects.
Yeah.
I learned a lot from this book. I did not know that the Hope Diamond or the Crown Jewels had curses attached to them.
Every jewel, and they're like iconic cursed objects because one, they're small enough to lose and change hands a lot. Two, only the ultra wealthy can possess them, and the ultra wealthy are ridden with problems, challenges. Generationally, they have these stuff go awry. And we always talk about rich people having an easy life, and they do, obviously. But like, there's an element of ultra wealthy where generationally your kids can't work. They become like bad people. It's just they're constantly having problems in the ultra wealthy, and these gems become iconography of that, and then they end up in museums often enough so that people like us who are not, I'm assuming here, are not ultra wealthy can go to see them. You can go within 3 inches of the Hope Diamond. You can go see the Crown Jewels. You can go see. I have a graph where like the top, I think 12 out of 13 cursed gems, as far as fame level, are in major museums across the world. Like the 13th one, I think, is the Black Orloff that's in private hands. But the rest, you can just go see. And like they have this entire history of like bad things happening around them. They're like the iconic. They're always like all the origin stories are stolen from an idol in India. Those are never true, but they do come from India. But they're just like iconic of what a cursed object can be as far as a storytelling device.
Right. And I'm going to tell you, I'm not going to say that I'm a rich man, but I can tell you I can afford a pack of gummy bears.
Sometimes that's all you need is a pack of gummy bears.
But it's got to be the pineapple ones, only the white ones. The hell with the rest of the flavors.
I eat them in handfuls, so they all just taste like gummy bear to me. It's gummy bear flavors, gummy bears.
That's fair. But there is one object in specific I want to touch on in this book because it has always fascinated me. And I like the whole story behind it, the whole lore, and the way that it just vanished. I want to talk about James Dean's little bastard.
I was just talking about this. My daughter, who's 16, is obsessed with movies. She just watched Rebel Without a Cause and immediately want to talk about James Dean. So, of course, I'm pulling the book out. I'm like, let me tell you about Little Bastard. So, yeah, Little Bastard is his curse. It's the car he died in, right, when he got into that wreck in California. It's cursed because what was salvaged from that car to put in other cars, into other race cars, they also killed I think they killed one of the owners, and the other one had a really bad crash. So that's kind of the curse. You had you had a body count of 3, basically 2 deaths and one injury, and that's not even true because James Dean's passenger who survived the crash would go on to die in a crash towards the end of his life. So it has a body count, which is super important for a cursed object. But what I loved about that story is how much, because he's famous and because he's kind of an icon, how much like documentation there's about it, from him and Obi-Wan Kenobi having that conversation a week before or Alec Guinness having that conversation before he crashed, to the PSA he shot where he talks about, don't go fast on the roads because the next person you kill could be me. Like
so not trying to interrupt, but you're talking about the conversation that he had with I can't remember his name, but he was like don't drive that car, it's gonna kill you.
Alec Guinness. He played Obi-Wan Kenobi in the original Star Wars.
Yeah. So don't drive that car, it's gonna kill you.
It's going to kill you because James Dean came to a restaurant, I think, came in a Little Bastard. He just gotten it brand new. And, of course, Alec Guinness is this respected actor. James Dean is this up-and-coming actor, right? And they had the conversation, and he wanted to show him his brand new, little Porsche, whatever. And Alec Guinness just said, and there's an interview online. It's a talk show interview, and Alec Guinness from his own mouth tells the story. This isn't like an urban legend. He says, I had this weird feeling. I told him, if you drive that car, you're going to be dead within the week. Yes. Within the week, he had the crash. And he just talks about how spooky it was that was like prescient and stuff like that. And again, you can hear it right from Guinness's mouth. It's on YouTube probably these days. But it is a fascinating kind of just moment in Hollywood and tragedy and cursed objects kind of lore.
No, and I think it's fascinating just because A, I am a James Dean fan, and B, I want to know where the car went.
Such a weird story, right?
Where did it disappear to?
So for the audience, somebody owned it. It was toured around kind of as like a, a macabre thing to look at, but also as a PSA for like driving fast or some excuse, but really it was a macabre artifact of a famous person.
Mm-hmm.
And according to the guy who owned it, and his name escapes me, he's a very kind of a showman type person. He put it in a train, into a boxcar to cart it across the entire country. And when they showed up at the other end of the country, opened the box, the car was gone, never to be seen again. To this day, right now, we don't know where the little bastard is. And that's the last story you really have. There was a story that came out, I think, a couple decades ago, where a guy, swore that he remembered his dad kind of hiding the car in a wall somewhere, but it's a story with a lot of holes in it. So really, our last view of it is an empty boxcar or whatever, somewhere out in the country, and just disappearing. Right. Then that again adds to the legend of the cursed object.
Yeah, and I love that. And for anyone out there who has not read this book, go and buy it. I'm sure it's available on Amazon. I'm sure it's available on Odd Things I've Seen.
You can get it anywhere you get books, for sure.
And yeah, I bought mine at Barnes and Nobles.
Oh, nice, good.
And like, I knew about the Crying Boy prints. I knew about those, and I knew about a lot of the other ones in here. But myself, like I said, I have about 200 books in my paranormal library. Everything from haunted objects to spontaneous human combustion. I study it. Mm-hmm. I learned some stuff about objects that I did not know in this book in my 20 years of doing paranormal research.
It was a fun book. It was a real journey. Like I said, I can't do books unless I'm allowed to travel for them. I need that experience. And I got to see a lot of cool stuff and experience a lot of cool collections and objects firsthand. So
have you seen
I have very fun memories in the book, even though it's dangerous. I have very
I'm
fun
gonna put your website up real quick. I wish you would touch on that for everybody.
Thank you. Have you been to the Clown Motel in Nevada?
I have. But I went there. I went there back before it had gotten the internet fame it has. So they weren't pushing the clown motif very hard. They had the sign. They had the lobby full of clown dolls. That was there. And then they took me to the room, and it just had like one picture of a clown on the wall. So they hadn't really realized they hadn't really gotten the fame yet. But now that they had kind of like became internet famous, they really themed those rooms with clowns, I believe. Yeah, so it's a very much different experience than I saw there.
Let's be honest. They got internet famous because of Ghost Adventures, that one episode.
That's true.
And I've driven by the Clown Motel. Not driven, but I was in the back seat because I was young. But I've seen the sign. Yeah. It's been there for a lot longer than people realize.
Oh yeah, and it was never meant to be creepy. It was meant to be sincere. It just so happened, whatever, clowns have changed over the century, and also, as you know, it's right beside a graveyard. So like those two things, just kind of the internet could not stop with that. They had to be. This is the creepiest thing ever. Can you believe this exists? And again, well deserved. Well deserved. It's a really cool site.
So there's so much more in this book that I want to talk about, but I see we're running low on time, so I got to skip over all that. I want to talk about you write spooky books for children as well. I
have, yeah. We got I think 4 out.
So can you touch on that as far as like what the age range you would recommend for reading, and like what are the stories about?
Yeah, it's technically middle grade is what they call it in the industry, which is like 7 to 12. But I really push middle grade into like other areas because I love children's books. It's like just purely, but even before I had children, I loved children's books. And so many of the books I loved back in the day have become middle grade, right? They redefine them as middle grade because it's a relatively brand new category, basically invented by Harry Potter back in the day because it was so popular. So they're all horror novels. And with each one, I try to come up with my own monster. With children, you can give them werewolves and ghosts and all the usual stuff, and they'll love it. But their ability to be horrified and have wonder is way beyond us jaded, us jaded adults, right? So you can have fun and actually experiment in ways you can't do with adults, right? I'm a horror novel fan as well, and when I find out my favorite author has his 1000th haunted house novel out, I'm still happy with that because it's a comfort to me, right? But it really shouldn't be, right? Horror should not be a comfort. But children, give them anything and they will have fun with it. So it allows me to be a lot more creative than I can with adult novels or, anything else. And, I try to, like, my first ever novel I wrote for kids was a serial killer novel. It was a boy third generation boy who lived in a funeral home. And then his basement, which was the morgue, started filling with serial killer victims. So he got kind of pulled into this, inadvertently, because I wanted to see, can you write a serial killer novel for children? And then after that, I was like more supernatural stuff, more monsters. I did the Black Slide, which is basically, the way I describe it is Hellraiser for children. And as you know, Hellraiser is not a very child-friendly property. But
I'm here for it.
Say it again?
I'm here for it.
Hellraiser is I'm astonished by Hellraiser. It's so unique, so interesting, right? And so I wanted to kind of get that vibe inside a children's book. So that's generally what I do, is I treat children's books, and I don't pull punches on horror. I think kids can be, again, literature is its own filter. So the whole point of one of the points of literature, especially for children, is let them have experiences that are dangerous, that aren't actually dangerous because they're words on page, right? Movies can show you stuff, real life will destroy you. So let them have these experiences on the page. It's the safest, most valuable way they can have it. So don't be like, that's my opinion. Don't try to teach them things through that. Don't try to like pull back and treat them like children. Give them full horror stories or full adventure stories, and they will again, their natural filter will do it. Most kids can read adult novels for all I care, right? They just are so good at, like, it's just a great way to experience life, especially for children, for everybody, first off, but for children especially, is via words. Because again, it's one of the few mediums where it's a co-art, where they're building the art with you. So I'm writing one page, I have my own idea of it, but their brains are painting their own world based on these words. And I have no access to that world. They've gone their own direction. So that co-authorship with a reader, especially with a child, is, they can smooth over points that they don't want to know about yet. They can really focus on things they love, or really scare themselves and have fun with it, because they have fun being scared more than adults. So I have a real philosophy around children's literature, but at the very base of it, I just love doing it because it's much more freeing than any other kind of literature in my experience.
I like that. So was writing a children's literature, as far as what you're doing, was that ever a plan when you first started thinking about being an author?
No. I was fully a nonfiction author at that point, and hadn't written a novel. But in my head, I was always going to at some point, right? English major, whatever, it's going to happen,
right?
And I read Neil Gaiman's Graveyard book, right? And it was a brilliant concept, the Jungle Book in a graveyard, brilliant concept. But that first chapter was so vicious. And I'm like, wait, you can do this in a children's novel? And the rest of the novel was less vicious. It was very fantasy based after that. So kind of like the first chapter, the entire family gets knifed in their beds, right? It's Amityville horror almost. And then the rest of it, he kind of softens it with fantasy, right? And I'm like, well, what happens though if you take that first chapter and make it the whole book? And that's kind of what my first Death and Douglas, the funeral book I told you about, kind of happened.
That's a good point.
So it was an accident. I didn't mean to write a children's book, but I was so fascinated by this idea that children's literature is much bigger than I thought it was, that kind of pulled me in.
And so I want to talk on some of the awards that you've won, because you are a multi-award winning author. And I know you've won the Edgar Award. You've won the Lowell, I think it's pronounced Lowell Thomas Gold Award.
Lowell Thomas.
Okay, yeah. I didn't see an H there, so I kind of got confused. But you've not only won the Gold Award, but you've won the Silver Award as well. So we touched on the cryptozoology of 2022 a few minutes ago. Is there one award that you have not gotten yet?
Oh yeah, tons. I mean, pretty much every award I've not gotten.
But that would be your holy grail, like the one that you want to win.
So the Edgar was it, because it's Poe. It's a big award. I mean, the same night that I was nominated and won, Stephen King was nominated and won. He was there in the room with it, right? So like it was that level of award was very special. Whereas Lowell Thomas was a travel writers award. So like, Stephen King's not in that, right? But Rick Steves is there, right?
I should have brought that up first, that the Edgar Award is in relation to Edgar Allan Poe.
Yeah, exactly. For the Mystery Writers of America, right?
Yeah, I should have brought that up first.
Because I'm a horror author. I mean, the Horror Writers of America have a Stoker Award. That's in this little shape of a little haunted house. Everybody that's ever written any horror wants one of those, and I'm with them, right? Because it's a beautiful award, it's a beautiful group, and again, horror is where my heart is, whether it's nonfiction or fiction. So I think that's probably one that I'd love to win any award, but love to win that award is as a horror guy, it has to be it.
I love that. Because I do know a lot about the Edgar Award. I have actually had a person on the podcast in the past that has won it previously. Nice. So it's a very prestigious award in literature. If you don't know what it is, go and look it up. And I'm glad that Gwen has posted the oddthingsi'veseen.com up here, because now, really quickly, I want to touch on Otis. What can people expect when they go to your website?
Two things. One is anything you need to know about me, like wherever I am on socials, what books I have out there. But its original purpose is a chronicle of my visits to weird stuff. I started that probably 2 years before I read a book deal. So just me going to weird stuff, whether it's cryptids, macabre stuff, natural wonders, anything that seemed different from the static of everyday life. And that's kind of how I started writing. Was I would just get in my car one weekend and go somewhere, write about it, or take pictures, come home and write about it. I didn't have an assignment. I wasn't an official travel writer by trade. I just did it. And back then we blogged, so it was a blog. And that's what and today, now it's an archive of thousands of my visits to weird stuff all over the country, but also all over the world, I guess, or relatively all over the world, but definitely all over the country. And that's kind of what it is. If you want to get to know what I am and what I do and why I do it, that's kind of, that archive is why that's there. These days I don't put as much into it because it goes in the books, but it's all there. Like there's, you could, there's hundreds to thousands of articles on there from my visits to weird places.
I love that. So Gwen, if we could put up the photograph, because I know that JW has a lot coming up this year.
Okay.
I want to make sure we
does.
highlight that so people know. JW, would you mind giving us a rundown on where people can find you?
Yes. So I have 2 books coming out this year. Don't Go There comes out next and comes out July 14th. Chasing That Swordsman comes out September 29th. And as a result, I'll be all over the place. I'll be in Maine at the International Cryptozoology Museum. That's relevant to our cryptid talk. It's a grand opening of the new ICM in Bangor, Maine. It just moved there.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. I'll be in Nashua doing something with my local indie Ballon books. I'll be in Salem. I'll be in New York a lot because the second book, Chasing That Horseman, is all about Sleepy Hollow, New York. So I'll be in Sleepy Hollow, New York, doing events there. Boston, I'll be in Boston at Spooktastic, which is a big author convention, a lot of us signing. Probably my bit closest to paranormal is I'll be doing Mass Paracon in Taunton, actually. I'll be doing a talk on cryptids, actually. So I'll be doing there.
Nice. I'm not sure if I'm going to make that or not. I wanted to. I'm not sure if I'm going to.
Yeah, that's Sam Baltruse's event. So I'll be doing that. That's going to be live. He invited me that a long time ago, and I'm excited to do that one. So basically all over New England and New York is my tour this year, starting next weekend for me, at least.
I love it. I love it. Gwen, if you wouldn't mind pulling that down. So, JW,
Yep, gotcha.
I always end my podcast off with 3 questions for my guests.
All right.
Question number 1, being you're an author and you do the traveling writing, right? If you could travel to one place that you've never been to write a chapter for one of your books and cost was not an option, where are you going?
I'm going to Japan. I want to go. So I've never been to anywhere in Asia. It's a big blind spot for me. And it's almost as far away as you can go from where I am right now. Australia probably actually is New Zealand, but their culture is so amazing. I mean, it's a whole entire country, but all of Asia is so amazing. And it's I don't like having such a big blind spot. So if I had unlimited funds, I have, there's probably, and I have unlimited time to figure out what I wanted to do over there. It'd be Japan. I pick out just because
I love it.
I'm a big Godzilla fan. That's probably why. So.
I love that. And for the record, no one wants to go to Australia. Everything there wants to kill you.
I want to go to Australia, and he knows that. That's why he's doing that. Yeah.
Because you're insane. So we're going to Japan. Okay, so now I can formulate my next question off of where we're going. We're going to one specific site in Japan.
Ooh.
What would be the site that would pique your interest the most that you're going to write about?
So in Tokyo, they have a Godzilla hotel. And I have 3 daughters. My middle child is a massive kaiju fan, and I've always been kind of as well, not to her degree. But they have a hotel that looks like Godzilla is just wrapped around it, like his giant heads on top of it, claws. All the rooms some of the rooms are themed. So I would go over there, and again, mostly because of my narrow American view. Godzilla is Japan, right? But I would just love to see everything there. Like the hotels, they have statues, they have historic stuff around Toho Studios. So I would want to get my fill of the kaiju culture, just because. Again, been watching those movies since I was a child, so it's an unfinished business for me. It's a loose end.
I like it. So, okay, so we're going to Japan. You're going to investigate Godzilla for your next chapter. Well, at this specific hotel. If you could bring one person with you that you think would be a additive to help you finish out this chapter of your life, who are you bringing?
It's going to be my middle daughter. I kind of already tilted my hand because she is. Inspired. She's the biggest cryptid fan I have as well of my 3 daughters, and she loves Godzilla in Tokyo. She's always like, I'm like, where do you want to go for spring break? Tokyo. I'm like, all right, where do you want to go for the weekend? Tokyo. Just can't stop saying that. So I'd have to bring her. Like she's like, she would inspire me, even though she wouldn't help a lot with the research. She's like 12 years old. She would inspire me to like enjoy that thing to the fullest, which as an older guy, sometimes it's hard to do.
You know what?
That's what I want.
Anytime your kids want to spend time with you is a good time.
Exactly.
It is.
Exactly. No,
So JW,
true.
look, man, I thank you so much for coming on the show for an hour tonight. I really appreciate the conversation. If you wouldn't mind hanging out in the background for about 5 minutes, I got one question that I always ask my guests post-show. And we will be with you shortly. We're going to close this out, and then I'll get you on your way because I guaranteed you an hour, and we ran about a minute and over. I'm a time Nazi. That's my bad.
No worries.
He is.
But I will see
Thank
you in
you.
just a minute.
We'll do.
There we go.
So that was an amazing conversation.
Oh yeah.
It was well worth the year wait of me asking. Because I was
I
nervous
remember
he
you
would say no.
you saying that you wanted him. Yeah. And then but my one question is, and the next time he comes on the show next year, I'm gonna ask him what cursed object would he like to touch or sit in, or that would be cool.
I mean, I'd sit in the devil's chair if I had an opportunity, but I'd probably die a week afterwards. But you know what? I lived a good life. I'm here for it. But no, that was an absolutely amazing show. I am so happy that I reached out and got him to come on the show, and I'm so grateful that he said yes to be on. I'm seriously hoping to have him back on next year. I love the conversation, and I didn't even get halfway through my questions.
I was looking, I was like, that's not halfway yet.
No, I actually had to flip pages and switch gears when I realized we were about 40 minutes in. I'm like, crap, I'm going to go over. But guys, that was another Wicked Wednesday episode of the Paranormal Unveiled with author and multi-award winner J.W. Ocker. Please be sure to go back and check out the Paramystic podcast with Christina Bloom. Her guest was Glenn Bottas.
Yes.
And who does Shayna have on today with Bridging the Seen and Unseen?
We had actor, director David J. Paul. He was a last minute replacement. He graciously popped in and did a good job, and there you go.
No.
It was a good show. Good show.
Awesome. I knew it was David something. I just couldn't remember what it was. And then be sure to stay tuned for the final block of this Wicked Wednesday with Twisted Tales with Jeremy Cotter, as he welcomes on our very own from the Paramystic podcast, Christina Bloom, for a very enlightening conversation. Guys, thank you all for tuning in. I appreciate your support, and All Access Network appreciates your support. And thank you to Mr. J.W. Walker for coming on the show for an hour tonight. I will see you all next Wicked Wednesday. Same spooky time, same spooky network. Tune in or miss out. Peace.
Night.